Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol special G20 coverage. In this edition, we are discussing the progress of financial inclusion in India's banking sector. So, what is financial inclusion? It is the process of bringing the underbanked and unbanked population of the country into the banking fold. If one looks at the last 10 years, India has made significant progress in the financial inclusion. Just to give some numbers, some perspective, right now around over 99% of the households have access to bank accounts now, which was not the case before. Jan Dhan Yojana, which was launched in 2014, has around 50 crore beneficiaries now with about 2 lakh crore bank deposits. Almost every part of the country is now penetrated by way of banking services, where technology has played a very, very critical role. While it's a matter of pride for all of us, the way financial inclusion has progressed, there are questions. What is the quality of the financial inclusion? Is merely extending the facility of bank accounts to somebody qualifies to be called as financial inclusion? What needs to be done? What role technology can play in further extending the scope of financial inclusion? To discuss this, we have three important guests today on our show, people who have actually worked on the ground, who are guiding the process of financial inclusion in their respective organizations. Mr. Charan Singh, founder, director and CEO of IGROW Foundation, also non-executive chairman of Punjab and Sindh Bank. Mr. Tabobrat Chowdhury, President and Business Head, Microfinance, Kotak Mahindra Bank. Sanjay Kumar, General Manager of UCO Bank. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. Let me start with Mr. Singh. Sir, you are someone who has worked on the financial inclusion front, both as part of the banking sector and also leading a research house for several decades. Last 10 years, as I mentioned, has been quite eventful in terms of the progress of financial inclusion. What are your initial thoughts when you take a look back over the last decade?
So if you talk about financial inclusion, I must mention that I've been doing lots of research on this for nearly 20 years now. The chapter in the statutory report, Trend and Progress of Banking in India, which is published in the RBI. I used to be the director in charge of that division way back in 2006. And around 2007, when we started including that chapter as a separate segment on financial inclusion, that statutory report. The issue is that while we nationalized the State Bank of India in 1955 or other banks in 69 and then 1980 with the same view of having better banking penetration in our country in the rural areas, we had not achieved it. And when we started thinking of writing a chapter in that statutory report, we started thinking in terms of financial inclusion in the RBI. And there was the study which was conducted first within RBI. And then, of course, Dr. C. Rangarajan, who conducted the study. And then he said financial inclusion has to be done on a national mission. Now, for all these years, that study never saw the light of the day. We had been talking of business correspondents. We had been saying that the banking needs to go and penetrate into the rural areas, bring in the unbanked population. But according to the studies within RBI, and Dr. Rangarajan documented it so well, that 50% of Indian households didn't have a bank account. It is only in 2014 when the new government came and they came out with this fabulous idea of a Jan Dhan account. Until then, we had been experimenting with different types of accounts, as I mentioned, through the business correspondent models. It wasn't showing any light. And as you shared the data today, from 2014 to today, 50 crore accounts have been opened. The fascinating thing is that when we did the Jan Dhan account in 2014, I was a professor at IIM Bangalore and had just done some studies in Tumkur area with Professor Gopal Naik. And it's a study on the website of IIM Bangalore. We found that yes, too much is missing. And Tumkur is just 100 miles away from Bangalore. Okay. But after the Jan Dhan, when we did another study in the same region, we found significant change and how accounts have been opened of people, farmers, non-farmers, women, made a very big dent. So the point that I'm making here is the journey that had happened from 1955, 69, 80 till 2014 was way behind. And from the journey 2014 to till today, with the Jandan account, then the Jam Trinity, much distance has been covered.
Right.
Today, we can safely say that about 95% of the households in our country have a bank account.
Right. So, all the points taken, Mr. Singh. But what I'm asking is that what about the quality of financial inclusion? So, how do you define? Do someone qualify to be called as financially included if he has a or she has a bank account, or what is your definition of financial inclusion?
So the point is that opening a bank account is a first step.
Yeah.
But as the first step is done, then how the business getting conducted? Are people using this account for credit purposes, for transaction purposes? Does it help to ease of doing business? And
Right.
that's exactly where I'm very proud to say that while the Jandan accounts were opened, if you now look at the number of transactions, and of course, COVID helped in a very big way.
Yeah.
If you look at the number of transactions now, I was looking at the volume of transactions which have been published in the RBI bulletin recently, and I saw that figures are mind blowing. If you look at the UPI transactions
Yes.
in volume, 933 crore, and if you look at the value, 14 trillion crore.
That's right.
And if you look at the total, where you take the UPI, NEFT, IMPS, then the volume is 1062 crore and the value is 51 trillion crore. So that means just not opening an account,
Right.
much more people have started using the account. So if you remember,
Absolutely.
when Jandan was introduced,
Yeah.
everybody said some of them are zero balance, nothing, nobody is doing any transaction. But that number has shrunk. And now the accounts are not only holding money, but there are transactions taking place. And as I mentioned, COVID time, that was a big push to the whole thing.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for points taken, Mr. Singh. Let me come to you, Mr. Chowdhury. If I can put it that way, private sector banks were initially not very forthcoming, so to say, in participating in the process of financial inclusion, particularly in those areas beyond the metro cities. For they had their own reasons, lack of profitability, sustainability, etc. But in the recent years, we have seen even private banks, coming aggressively into the tier 2, tier 3 cities, even the far-flung rural areas. What is your experience? You are heading the microfinance division in your bank. If you look at the recent years, how has this evolution shaped up in your bank?
Yes, you were right in the sense that private sector banks initially were reluctant or they did not have the right infrastructure to tackle the problem of financial inclusion. But over the years, the digital ecosystem that has evolved in the country,
Right.
and coupled with the use of business correspondence, has enabled private sector banks also to have a last mile connectivity to the end customer. If I were to talk about our case today,
Yeah.
Kotak Mahindra Bank has a presence in the deepest rural pockets of the country through a wide network of BC branches. So our agents on a daily basis, they touch the lives of close to almost 2 million customers as we speak, and offer banking services and other products that the customers require at the doorstep of the customers. So the way we approach financial inclusion is we are looking at it not just from the point of view of access to savings banks account. Yes, Kotak Mahindra Bank has been at the forefront of among private sector banks in terms of showing the growth of quarter on quarter in the number of Jan Dhan accounts opened.
Right.
That is one part. The other part is as part of financial inclusion. Financial inclusion also entails providing timely access to credit facilities. In that, our bank is doing some important work in reaching out to the low income groups, reaching out to the underserved communities, and offering them banking products, credit facilities, which they can use to improve their livelihood, their economic activities. So see, what we have seen is when credit is given to the bottom of the pyramid, low income households, we have seen that it has a multiplier impact. It has a multiplier effect in boosting the overall economic output of the family. In reducing poverty, we have seen it helps in women empowerment. So the whole issue, it's not a problem of financial inclusion. I think it is an amazing opportunity which this whole area of financial inclusion offers to banks, and banks such as ours are taking advantage of it, and we remain committed to the cause of financial inclusion
Right.
and ensuring that credit reaches to the last customer at the in the last mile.
Right. But how do you crack the code of profitability, Mr. Kumar? This is something which has always puzzled me. Unlike public sector banks, which have traditionally a large presence in the rural areas and in the tier 2 cities, private sector banks where the presence were largely limited to the metros, etc., which also presented a problem of profitability for them. When they operate in the financial inclusion in the faraway areas. So how are you managing the business part of it?
Uh, See, the profitability is a question of what is your cost of delivery.
Right.
So far, this business model did not make sense, or it had the questions on its viability, profitability would have arisen because the cost of delivery of the service to the last mile was significantly high. It was prohibitive. But
Right.
with the advent of digital technologies, like Mr. Singh alluded to, the India Stack, okay, the Jam Trinity. So it has enabled banks like us to reach to the customer at the in tier 4, tier 5 cities, using a mix of technology and business correspondents who have a physical reach. So overall, today the cost of delivery is significantly lower than what it was a decade back. That is point number one.
Right.
Point number two is it has been shown that the poor, the underbanked, the low income groups are not necessarily bad credit. They are good credit if they are told, they are educated about the end use of funds that they borrow for. So we have seen that they deploy the funds in for economic activities. We have seen that those economic activities in turn generate significant return for those households.
Right.
Basis that they make payments on time. It is only sometimes due to natural calamities or certain exigencies, like black swan events like COVID, when there are impacts. So that is not just to the underbanked.
Yeah.
It was across the board, but largely we have seen the low income households, we have seen the underbanked are good credit, provided that we provide them timely credit and for economic activities, and we kind of counsel them and educate them.
That's right, Mr. Chaudhary. As they say, the poor always pays back. Let me come to Mr. Kumar. UCO Bank, had a very uniquely positioned task because the northeastern part of the country were always at a disadvantage in terms of banking penetration. And for decades, we have seen there is an issue. For some reasons, banks hesitated to go into those areas. But UCO has a pretty strong presence in the east, and you have done commendable work over the last few decades. Can you share your experience that what did you identify as the major issues while you operate in the for the progress of financial inclusion in the eastern part?
Thank you. You rightly pointed out that UCO Bank is having the big presence in the eastern side, and we are the only nationalized, or you can say public sector bank located at Calcutta. We have the headquarters at Calcutta. The financial inclusion part is taken as a mission mode by the bank, and bank has identified three major challenges to provide or complete the financial inclusion target given by the government of India. First challenge comes to reaching to the masses and providing the banking services to them.
Right.
Number two, reaching to masses and secure the unsecured citizens of the country. And number three, reaching to masses and do the funding part, which is unfunded so far in the country. First part, reaching to the masses, PMJDY Jandhan Yojana, that account is playing a major role. What we have identified here, that if you reach to the last mile of the population and provide them banking services by a different modes of a opening of the account. So we have the traditional banking channels. We have about 8,500 BCs we have, which is located in different parts of the country, far-flung areas, and we have been provided micro ATMs to them. So the citizens are reaching to them, and they are opening about. Let me tell you, about 80% of our Jandhan accounts are being opened by the BC channel.
Right.
Third, we have also technology-enabled mode we have given. They can open account through our e-banking. They can open account through our mobile banking app as well. So all these channels are providing sufficient room, sufficient the comfort to the public or to the population, and we are bringing them onto the banking platform.
Sir, if I can interrupt you for a moment, you said almost 80% of the accounts, Jandhan accounts, were opened through the BC channels. I'm really curious to know what kind of activity you are seeing in these accounts. Are these accounts only used, say, mostly for DBT, or do you also see credit operations and other transactions in such accounts?
See, once a customer approaches to us for opening of the Jandhan account, we are also providing them the services of opening of the insurance schemes provided by the Government of India, like Prime Minister Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Prime Minister Suraksha Bima Yojana, and as well as Atal Pension Yojana. So taking together Jandhan accounts, these two insurance products as well as one pension product, that completes the entire cycle of the financial inclusion part. Other than this, normal DBT transaction, they are also being encouraged to do their day-to-day transaction in the account. And let me tell you, as far as, because in the previous panel you were asking about the probability part about the Jandhan Yojana, that is a myth. In the industry size or national average, about 4,100 per average balance is in the PM Jandhan Yojana account. In our bank, it goes to even per account average balance in the Jandhan Yojana account is 4,500 crores. So 4,500 rupees. That gives a very substantial CASA business for the bank. Okay. And you know that in case of saving bank account, it's a low interest bearing. That bank has to incur very very low interest rate in such account. Right. So other than this Jandhan DBT transactions, they are also encouraged to take other normal business transactions. They can deposit the money, they can withdraw the money, and they can do the remittances as well.
That is very encouraging to know, Mr. Kumar, that these accounts are also now coming into mainstream with other products other than the basic banking activities. But talking about technology, UPI has really changed the game. Ever since 2016, as Mr. Charan Singh pointed out at the start of our conversation, that now UPI-based applications are all over, and every corner of the country has be it vegetable vendors or small kirana shops or anyone we can see using this UPI-based applications for financial transactions. So let me come to the second part of the discussion, Mr. Singh, that say we have taken in account of what has happened over the last few decades, and which you have narrated very nicely. So what is the next major trigger for financial inclusion for India? What are the next targets or aspects that the country should look into? You have done tremendous significant research in IGRO.
Yeah. So I must mention this at the outset again. When you look at what good are these Jandhan accounts, does transactions take place? Please remember, the Jandhan accounts serve multiple purposes than just the monetary transaction. First of all, it empowers people who had never been to the bank and have undertaken surveys. Yeah. Where people were scared and they would tell me the gunman standing at the entrance is standing there. If I try to enter, he'll shoot me. The cobbler sitting outside the bank, repairing the shoes of the bankers inside, dare not enter that branch. So Jandan accounts and these accounts which have opened 50 crore, they really serve a purpose of empowering people, especially empowering women, and giving the confidence to the countrymen that these banks are not alien to them. They belong to them. They can conduct a transaction. Also, please also remember when you say are they profitable, the balances may seem small to you at this point of time. But this is basically an investment which is being done by the bankers, because at the lowest end of the pyramid, there is money. They may not have sufficiently now because we have passed through a very bad time, especially COVID. But as things start normalizing and India goes back to 8% growth, you will find that these accounts start booming. And the money inside these accounts will be much and transactions will be conducted. Now, this was the past which I wanted to mention, that empowering people, giving them a card, holding a card in their pocket, feeling proud about the fact that they also have a bank account is an immense happiness. Look at the smile when I was doing surveys. They said, even I have a card. And that used to surprise me. Now coming to the point, how are we going to look at it in days to come? I think this is going to be transformative. Okay. Firstly, because of Jandan accounts, the reach has gone far and wide. Look at the credit account. I need to take a housing loan, a car loan, a tractor loan. All this can be conducted seamlessly. If I have an account and I have a track record, I have a history of accounts. Similarly, women entrepreneurship. Females, somehow socially and culturally, we do not allow them to enter the workforce. Only 20% work in India vis-a-vis 80% in the neighborhood, and global average of 60%. Empowering women to have a bank account would help in a very big way in encouraging them to do business. Now, the self-help groups have played a role. Microfinance institutions have also played a role. But now the government's idea of having drones and then dedicating women to the drone technology and drone systems is again going to happen basically through the Jandan accounts, because we have connected them. Similarly, transactions which are happening in a very big way, you mentioned about UPI, but now when you talk of the village and cottage industry and open markets, people sitting in faraway places, in metropolitans and even Western world, advanced countries, they can order through the marts. Electronic shopping can take place and directly reach the cottage and village industry. Right. So to my mind, the scope for commerce is immense, and this will change the landscape of our country. Especially rural women will benefit immensely through this, and that was the main purpose of reaching the unbanked.
Right, possibilities are immense. That's a very important point. Mr. Chowdhury, what is the key focus going ahead in terms of your MFI business, along with the idea of advancing financial inclusion? I'm sure that you would have charted out a plan for the business growth as well. That what should we look for in Kotak's plan of action going ahead?
Yeah, see, the number of Jandan accounts that we all spoke about is 50 crores, right?
Yeah.
And if one has to look at the microfinance customers currently, the total unique borrowers of the microfinance industry, as per the data published by MFIN, which is a SRO, is about 6.2 crores.
Right.
So it shows the enormous potential, the enormous the market which is there to be addressed. Okay, if I were to look at the Jandan data, the PMJDY accounts data, 50%, 50 crores is the number that we all discuss. Out of that, 56% of the accounts belong to women. Okay, and for microfinance, the majority of the customers are women. So on one hand, we are talking about the total customer count of 6.5 crores unique borrowers. And then on the other hand, if we just take 50% of 50 crores, 50 crore Jandan account, 56% of it are women. So we have over 25 crore accounts which belong to women. So you can see that if I were to take, every account holder, every woman who has a Jandan account as a potential customer, so you can see how much the gap is, right? Absolutely. So there is a lot of ground to be covered. This is, I would say that this is we are in the middle of the whole journey. While the journey for the past 10 years has been really exciting, a lot of ground has been covered, but there is significant amount of ground to be covered yet. So I'll just give.
If I can interrupt you, how much of this will be through the technology channels, and how much of this expansion will be through the physical branch models?
I think increasingly it will be driven by digital channels. Technology has shown that were it not for technology, there was no way that today we would have, in a span of 10 years, we would have reached where we have reached today. So technology is the single most important factor, of course, along with the will and the intent of all the stakeholders.
Right.
But technology has been the most enabling factor in this journey. And I think going from here to going forward, technology will play a very important role in furthering the cause of financial inclusion.
Right. Mr. Kumar, how do you look at partnerships in furthering the cause of financial inclusion and bringing in sustainable business growth in your operations with respect to the basic banking accounts? Are you open to looking at microfinance institutions, partnerships, etc.?
Microfinance part plays a very important role as far as banks, particularly if we talk about growth in advances. Microfinance also plays a very important role. What we have done, just our previous panel members has told you, that take the case of self-help group. This is mainly now the women beneficiaries are there in our bank. Bihar, Odisha, Northeast, even that way, even Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. There, a large number of SHG groups are being funded by the bank. What further we have done also, out of the SHG groups, we have also selecting some people, and they are getting appointed as a BC for inclusion, or they are opening for the Jan-Dhan account, as well as providing the 2 insurance schemes for the country. What we have done for the giving the further flip to the microfinance funding, we have entered into a co-lending arrangement with at least 4 or 5 microfinance entities. They are already in the microfinance business. Take the case of say Odisha. One Annapurna is one of the known name for microfinance funding.
Right.
So we have entered into a co-lending arrangement with such company, right, so that they have the reach to the masses. Bank has the funding, so once both the party comes together, it will become easier for the our expand their business, our business, as well as funding to the largest masses,
right,
largest mass as well.
Right.
These are the things that we have already initiated to give a flip to the microfinance funding.
Right. Before I conclude, I really hope to hear from each of you very quickly. We have been stressing a lot on the technology-enabled financial inclusion, right? In one or other way, technology is the aspect that is leading the entire efforts. But how do we tackle the the security aspects of technology-driven model? Because we are talking about people like Mr. Singh emphasized, for the first time in their lives, they are starting to use banking services through Jan-Dhan accounts and UPI, etc. They are not tech savvy. They don't know, how to. I assume that they wouldn't be able to realize what is a fraud call and what is not. So, as you navigate your financial inclusion plans, how are you managing the security and safety aspect of this technology-based transactions? If I can start with Mr. Singh.
So this is very, very important. But please remember, the brick and mortar branches also have had their fair share of frauds, sometimes much more, sometimes willful defaulters, right?
Yeah.
So with the business of money, with the business of banking, one has to be prepared that there is going to be some such leakage. The problem and the responsibility is on the technology firewalls. And the banking system, to a great extent, is making enough efforts and much more so that the firewalls are solid and can't be penetrated. Once in a while it may happen, it will happen, but I think that's not a causable. On the other hand, for the consumer and the user, that financial literacy, that what is that they have to be careful, what is they have to be watchful, so that they are not opening up their accounts, or they do not expose themselves to vulnerable situations. So financial literacy to that extent is also being done by the system. So I don't see this as one has to be alert and one has to be aware, but I don't see as a stumbling block or a reason that financial inclusion through digital and fintech should not expand leaps and bounds.
Sorry, Mr. Chowdhury, this private sector banks in general have seen a lot of technology-related issues, be it delayed transactions. It's not specific to private sector banks. I stand myself corrected. It across all banks. Be it delayed transaction failures, etc. So again, let me put the same question to you. We are talking about the bottom of the pyramid, people who are not very tech savvy. So what are the safeguards your bank typically adopt when you deal with such customers?
Yeah, you see, as part of the national strategy for financial inclusion, among the 6 strategic objectives, one of the objectives was customer protection and grievance redressal. So when we talk about customer protection and grievance redressal as one of the key strategic objective of financial inclusion, so every stakeholder who is part of the whole ecosystem has to ensure that sufficient safeguards are built in their delivery of the product in as to ensure that online frauds, phishing, impersonation, cyber security breaches don't happen. One of the most important things that each stakeholder has to do is, along with financial literacy, digital literacy is something that each stakeholder has to ensure that the users of their platform, their products, all are sufficiently digitally aware and digitally literate. Just like one will always want to keep the doors and of your home locked, one has to ensure that that same level of literacy, same level of understanding is dissipated to the customers, to the users. This is as far as the customers and users are concerned. And as a service provider, also one has to ensure that one's digital architecture, one's IT networks, one's security structures are all sufficiently updated so that any external attacks, any such phishing attacks are prevented, or even if it happens, it is immediately known and corrective steps are taken. So our
Right.
bank is investing a lot on this technology. Our bank is putting a lot of efforts in ensuring that its digital network, its IT infrastructure is all up to date and can serve the aspirations that we are seeking to address.
Right, Mr. Kumar. In your bank, how do you have you come across instances where the Jan Dhan accounts have been attacked by phishing attacks or any fraudulent attacks, and how do you typically respond to such instances?
Other than the normal these precautions, let me tell you the three important initiatives taken by the bank. Bank has introduced electronic fraud risk management system for all the ADC products, including the FI channel transactions happening on the alternate delivery channels. So all the transactions, whatever happening, that is being tested by that special that is called EFRMS package, which identifies if any something wrong transaction happens. Number one. Number two, as I told you in my opening remarks, that about 80% of our Jan Dhan account is being opened by the BC mode.
Right.
So what bank has done? Bank has created a special dashboard for BCs, and through that dashboard, day-to-day transaction, day-to-day activities of the BCs are being monitored, so that BC cannot do any hanky-panky. Third, to make the Jan Dhan beneficiaries or to aware, bank is arranging FLC, that is called financial literacy camps, on monthly basis at different places, so that and there bank people call the people the Jan Dhan account beneficiaries and other beneficiaries to make them aware about the technology part, digital transaction, how and what type of precautions that we have to take.
Right.
With these three special initiatives, although you can't rule out 100%, but let me tell you, in our bank, this such type of incidents are very, very minimal. and regular this type of activity is being undertaken by the bank.
Very, very important points, Mr. Kumar. So the key takeaways are, technology continues to be at the center stage of Indian Bank's financial inclusion initiative, and technology more importantly, has also lowered the cost of furthering the course of financial inclusion. At the same time, necessary safeguards are very critical to face instances of fraud, etc. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for participating in the show. Thank you so much for your comments. That brings us close to the end of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
How do world leaders view India?
I've long believed that the relationship between the United States and India is will be one of the defining relationships of the 21st century.
The bright spot of the global economy.
The growth rate for India, which is 6.8 in 2022. Let's not forget, this is one of the bright spots in the global economy right now, such a high growth rate.
The potential of India is enormous, and you have now a reformer, a radical reformer, who has the ability to transform it.
On the verge of a big transformation.
इस अमृत काल में हमारे संकल्पों की सिद्धि हमें आजादी के 100 वर्ष तक ले जाएगी.
A magnet for investment.
I'm actually incredibly excited about the future of India. I think India has more promise than any large country in the world.
The world is bullish on India. Moneycontrol is bullish on India. Join the campaign. Tweet to us with #MC Bullish on India.